Hello people, welcome! This is a follow-up video to a previous video I made concerning loot boxes. So if you haven't seen that, I suggest you go and watch it. It will give you context. The link will be in the description. Now, I was not happy, not content, not at ease with that video because honestly, looking back on it, I felt it betrayed the channel name, Honest Gaming. And I've thought about this quite a lot. Honesty for me, and I think this applies especially to anyone in media, or anyone who's presenting themselves and their opinions to any kind of an audience whatsoever. Honesty for those people is about more than just stating their truth, or their genuine opinion on fact. It's about the responsibility that they have of transparency to their audience, to make their opinions concise and clear, and to actively work to avoid any confusion as to where they stand on a particular issue. Watching that video back in hindsight, and with the benefit of the comments, which were awesome, incredibly varied in terms of opinions, and the video well received in its own merit, I felt the video was lacking in that regard. It felt rushed, which I think it was, and it seemed to lack, for me at least, any form of strictly adhered to structure, and I felt that concluding it with a statement or a final summary would have really helped tie everything together. So, you have my apologies for the lack of due diligence that previous video came together with, and I beg you consider this right now as an epitaph of sorts of that video, and hopefully I can more accurately, elegantly and eloquently clarify my stance on loot boxes and gambling. So, what I'd like to look at, what I'm overjoyed to look at, I love doing this, is the question, are loot boxes gambling? And this was a question raised in the comments by quite a few people, and one manner of phrasing that had particular merit to my brain on a thought train was Greg Jackson, who said, "It's not gambling by any definition, as you can't lose. But it does take advantage of human weakness, and it is a bad practice. I think calling it gambling and regulating it as gambling is inaccurate and does a disservice, as people spend time bickering over whether it's gambling or not, rather than whether it's exploitative, which it clearly is. Regulating it as an exploitative business practice, however, is fine by me." Now, obviously he's referring specifically to Wargaming's boxes, where you're guaranteed to get your money's worth in them, which is a far cry from boxes within other games that have no such guarantee, and it is indeed something that I brought up and recognised in the previous video. But this comment, or the phrasing of the sentiments in it, brought me to an interesting train of thought. And I wanted to share it with you. It prompted this video, so thank you, Greg. He states that you can't lose, which, from a monetary standpoint, may be true. Well, it is true. You'll get an equal value product or more, but I'd argue that losing out in these things isn't black or white. Being satisfied or not depends on your objective. If you're buying the boxes for the gold, premium time and credits, then you might be satisfied. If you're buying them for the OP tanks, you'll more than likely be disappointed. And that ties into what I said last video about the experience of the product. That gambling experience, that uncertainty, that excitement, that chance that people enjoy. That's why I name them exploitative. Because they target people who enjoy that feeling, people who hang up their hopes knowing there's a possibility of getting what they want, and they gamble money to try and get that. And to them, most certainly, yeah, they've lost when they don't get that tank. So, it really depends on your attitude. But we'd be lying if we said that the inclusion of these OP tanks in the boxes didn't provide a huge, and in some cases, the main incentive for buying them. And that is why I so passionately resent this whole fiasco, right? Because, as Greg mentioned, it exploits natural human weakness and it incentivizes it with in-game advantages. calling it gambling and regulating it as gambling does a disservice. Well, the problem currently is the gaming community, collectively, upon realising the goldmine that loot boxes were, collectively jizzed all over every property they could get their hands on, monetising at a cost of even gameplay such as in Shadow of War. It became such a problem that some games developers, like this company on Steam, literally put not doing that shit as a selling point in the description of their game. These loot box microtransaction economies were born from free-to-play games, like Clash of Clans. The game is free, but you can pay to alleviate a grind or make life slightly easier. And there it worked. And there it should have stayed, in my opinion, but it didn't. It should have stayed in free games as an option, but people started realising, shit, casinos are gonna be so jealous. They have to actually offer their patrons a chance to win. They actually have to think about losing money when they do this. How much does an E25, a Heffa, a Defender cost us to potentially lose? Fucking bollocks is what it costs. Maybe a little bit of game balance, but who cares? So you can understand how this whole thing started, right? The freemium economy of mobile games being transplanted unceremoniously into 40, 50, 60 pound games. In-game progress slowed down to such a monotonous and ludicrous extent so as to encourage the purchase of different forms of microtransactions. It was a goldmine. And I say it was because people are starting to take notice. Belgium. And honestly, to me, it's shocking to think about how quickly this happened. From the advent of microtransactions in games and with Bethesda's bloody Oblivion horse armor in April 2006, that came out for like it was around $2, I think. Horse armor, $2. People were mad. Nothing like that had ever happened before. And then after that, you had the start of mobile gaming economies, which came after the iPhone in 2007. The difference between game monetization from then to now is night and day. Back in the day, you bought a complete finished game, no DLC, no additional content, one purchase, one finished, completed product that people were proud of, and you were done. But now, in only 11 years, people have been so acclimatized to the microtransaction age that legislation has to be put in place to protect customers from the products. And I find that ridiculous. And that's why I agree with Belgium's stance on paid loot boxes, because whether you call it gambling or not gaming is an inclusive art form. It appeals to so very many different types of people, and chief among that list are young people. Young people who, justified or not, place a lot of importance on being the best, having the best stuff, winning. And companies know this. And without legislation in place to stop them, without rules, without someone getting litigious, they will exploit it because they can. Without rules in place, they can stuff these things into anything. FIFA? Star Wars? They can put loot boxes into My Little Pony and they don't have to change the rating at all. Not 18 plus, nothing. There is nothing in place right now to protect people from these things. They can target young people with poor money management skills, incentivise them with something that they care about, potentially at the cost of game balance and integrity with OP gear. And it's in a medium where I feel people should be safe and free, in a medium that so many people use for connecting and expressing themselves. And it's hard not to view companies that implement these sorts of systems into games as vultures, being anxious to pick any scrap they can off any of their customers. And I'm going to do my due diligence and express my point now, just sum it up. Right? Most critically, I resent loot boxes being presented, these are paid loot boxes being presented to young people who are actively incentivized to gamble for an in-game advantage. Secondly, loot boxes at a cost of game balance and design quality? No, that applies to DLC as well. You can't just put out a game that's clearly not finished and then sell DLC to complete the feckin' game. Finish your game, be proud of it, then sell it. Third, I don't mind free loot boxes, or loot boxes containing aesthetic items like skins and the like, though I feel like people should take care to avoid skin economies like the whole CSGO Lotto scandal that cropped up a couple of years back that I might cover on this series, in spite of the fact that it's quite old now. It does hold a lot of importance in terms of making a point, I think. Finally, I wouldn't mind these boxes if they were just the gold and the premium time and the credits. It's talking about wargaming specifically. I wouldn't mind the boxes because you get your money. You get your money's worth in these boxes for the gold, the premium time. And it's kind of like a sale in that regard. If the tanks weren't in there, I wouldn't mind. I'm thinking on that right now, thinking, like, it's interesting, I've just said that, and I've come across a new train of thought. I don't think... Sorry, I had to take a moment to formulate what I want to say here. I think what bothers me, reflecting on what I just said, what bothers me most about all of this is when companies exploit both the game, their product, something that I should be proud of, they exploit that in order to exploit the player. And I think when both of those things combine, it makes for a disgusting, exploitative product. And that, for me, is the worst thing about these microtransaction loot box economies. And I do think that the amount that companies and developers are sacrificing for the sake of monetization is getting to toxic levels, and I think without someone stepping in and taking a hard stance, without someone with power saying this is not okay, this is okay, without someone clarifying, they will push the bar further and further and further, and it will get worse and worse and worse. And that is a genuine shame.